Welcome, curious minds. My name is Daniel, and this is Flying Chariots: The Rise. Before we jump into today's episode, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're listening here on YouTube, but you also use Spotify, and maybe you didn't even know this podcast is available there as well, I'd really appreciate it if you could follow us on Spotify and leave us a rating. It really helps the podcast grow and it means a lot to us. You'll also find all of our fascinating interviews and conversations with some truly incredible guests over there. So, if you haven't checked those out yet, they're waiting for you. And to everyone who's already following us and has left a rating, thank you so much. Your support genuinely makes a difference. And like I said, it means a lot to us. Thank you so much, guys. But guys, today I got hit by a breast. I was going to a bakery today to buy some bread and stuff when I entered the shop and saw a bigger lady already arguing full force with one of the employees over the size of, chocolate croissants. The woman was visibly mad about the fact that these croissants had been larger not too long ago. When I stepped beside her to place my order, she, without noticing me, took a step to the left towards me and turned around fast. And when she turned around, she hit me in the face with one of her ginormous calcium cannons. You would expect her to say sorry, right? But she didn't apologize. She looked at me and said, "Excuse me?" As if I ran into her chest boulders on purpose. What the fuck? What the hell is wrong with people? If you got cuddle clouds this size, put some warning lights on top of them. Damn, guys. But let's not talk about these tickle twins anymore. If I asked you to name the most famous secret military base in the world, most of you would probably give the same answer. Area 51, which has become almost legendary over the years, of course. It's been the subject of books and movies, and of course, endless speculations. We did that too here on the podcast. But what if I told you there is another installation that officially existed under the name Area 52? You heard it. But almost nobody talks about it. According to investigative journalist George Knapp, government documents from the Atomic Energy Commission dating back to 1965 actually refer to the Tonopah Test Range as Area 52. In other words, Area 52 wasn't created by the internet. It's not an internet myth. The internet simply discovered a name that had already existed for a very long time. And tonight, I want to take a closer look at this not-so-well-known military installation. Area 52 is better known by its official name, the Tonopah Test Range, located in the Nevada desert northwest of Las Vegas. The facility sits within one of the most isolated military regions in the United States. Unlike Area 51, however, its existence has never really been a secret. You'll actually find the Tonopah Test Range on many maps. But what remains secret is what happens inside. Of course. According to George Knapp, the relationship between Area 51 and 52 has often been misunderstood. They're not competing facilities, they're partners. As George Knapp describes it, many classified aircraft follow a remarkably consistent path. They begin life at Air Force Plant 42 in California, where they're designed and assembled. Their earliest flight testing takes place at Edwards Air Force Base. From there, the aircraft often move to Area 51, where engineers refine the technology under extreme secrecy. Only after those systems become operational, some projects continue on to Area 52 for weapons testing, operational evaluation, and further development. It's a process that has remained largely invisible for the public for a long time. And perhaps that's why Area 52 has managed to stay in the shadow of its far more famous neighbor. While Area 51 became a cultural icon, Area 52 simply continued doing what it was built to do, testing some of America's most advanced military technology. If Area 52 had only been another remote weapons testing facility, very few people outside the military would have ever heard of it. But hidden behind its fences was one of the most remarkable Cold War programs ever conducted by the United States Air Force. It was known as Constant Pack. For more than a decade, from 1978 until 1988, American military pilots fought dogfights against Soviet fighter jets, right there in the Nevada desert. The aircraft were genuine Soviet MiGs. MiG-17s, MiG-21s, MiG-23s. Aircraft originally designed for America's greatest Cold War adversary. Exactly how the United States acquired every one of those aircraft remains a fascinating story in itself. Some came from allied nations. Others were quietly obtained through intelligence operations. But whatever their origin, they all ended up flying over the Tonopah test range. The purpose was simple. American pilots needed to know exactly how Soviet aircraft performed in real combat. The only way to truly understand an opponent was to fly against one. Highly experienced Air Force pilots climbed into Soviet-built fighters and challenged American crews in realistic air combat exercises. The pilots who participated weren't told to imagine what a MiG might do. They faced the real thing. According to the program's former commander, Colonel Gale Peck, the operation remained almost completely hidden from public view. If you were selected for the program, you were briefed, you flew your missions, you were debriefed, and then the door closed behind you. By the time the project finally became public years later, more than 15,000 training missions had already been completed. Thousands of flights, hundreds of pilots. More than 10 years of operations, and almost no one outside the program had any idea it even existed. It's a remarkable reminder that military secrets can, in fact, remain hidden for a very, very long time. Not forever, but long enough to reshape history before anyone even knows the story exists. Whenever a military installation operates behind a wall of secrecy, one thing becomes almost inevitable. Rumors. We all like rumors, of course. And over the decades, Area 52 has collected more than its fair share. Some people have claimed there are enormous underground cities hidden beneath the Nevada desert. Others have spoken of secret rail systems connecting distant military installations. There have even been stories about hidden runways that appear only when aircraft are ready to land. That's crazy. It's easy to see why stories like these spread. The Nevada desert is enormous. Thousands of square miles of restricted land, limited public access, and constant military activity. And almost no official explanation for what happens there on a daily basis. It's the perfect environment for speculation. But here's something I found particularly interesting in George Knapp's discussion. Despite spending decades investigating these facilities, despite interviewing countless military personnel, and despite visiting the area more times than most people ever will, he draws a very clear line between what he can confirm and what he cannot. For example, veteran aviation researcher John Lear believed enormous underground facilities existed beneath Area 52. He described hidden chambers, underground transportation systems, and vast complexes buried beneath the desert. They are fascinating stories, but George Knapp is careful to not present them as established fact. In fact, he openly admits that he has never been able to verify those claims. what he has confirmed is something much more modest. There are additional facilities across the Nevada test and training range that remain largely unknown to the public. Some are difficult to detect and some are highly classified. But the existence of massive underground cities is unproven. Unfortunately, that would be cool. But I think that's an important distinction, because when discussing subjects like Area 51 or Area 52, it's incredibly easy for documented history and fascinating speculation to become mixed together. And once that happens, it becomes almost impossible to separate one from the other. For a long time, there was one place that fascinated aviation geeks, photographers, and Area 51 researchers alike. A mountain called Tikaboo Peak. From its summit, nearly 26 miles away, visitors could catch a distant glimpse of the world's most famous secret military installation. Not close enough to see every detail, and not close enough to photograph classified technology, of course, but close enough to watch aircraft taking off and landing under the right conditions. It wasn't an easy journey. Reaching the summit meant driving deep into the Nevada desert, followed by a demanding hike through rugged terrain. Only those willing to make the effort ever experienced the view. For many researchers, Tikaboo Peak became something almost symbolic. It represented the last legal window into one of the most secretive places on Earth. But recently, that window quietly closed. Earlier this year, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management approved a temporary closure affecting nearly 23,000 acres of public land surrounding Tikaboo Peak. The official explanation cited public safety and the need to reduce risks to visitors in the rugged terrain. Isn't it great how they care about us, our safety and our health? Thank you so much. The closure is currently scheduled to last at least 1 year while conditions are reassessed. To some people, that explanation was perfectly reasonable. Others immediately began asking whether something else might have motivated the decision. Who would have thought? George Knapp points out that similar buffer zones have been created around Area 51 before. The difference this time is the distance. Tikaboo Peak wasn't located directly beside the base. It's set roughly 26 miles away, which naturally led some observers to wonder, why close the last legal viewpoint now? At the moment, nobody outside the government can answer that question with certainty. Some researchers believe that military is preparing to test a new generation of classified aircraft. Others argue the decision is exactly what officials say it is. A routine safety measure. And that's an important distinction, I guess. One explanation is documented, the other remains speculation. Until more evidence becomes available, the honest answer is that we simply don't know. But I think I have an idea. What about you guys? But whether the reason is safety, security, or something else entirely, one thing is clear. The last public vantage point overlooking Area 51 is no longer accessible. And with that, one more small piece of the Nevada desert has disappeared behind the curtain of secrecy. So, when most people hear the words Area 51, their imagination immediately fills in the blanks. Flying saucers, alien technology, and government conspiracies. It's a place that has become larger than life. But after spending time looking into its lesser-known sister facility, I think the real lesson is something different. History has repeatedly shown us that the United States has conducted extraordinary classified programs in the Nevada desert. Programs so secret that even thousands of people working on them managed to keep them hidden for years. Constant Peck is proof of that. For a decade, American pilots secretly trained against genuine Soviet fighter jets, completing more than 15,000 missions before the public knew anything about the program. That isn't speculation, guys. It's history. And perhaps that's exactly why places like Area 51 and Area 52 continue to capture our imagination. Because once we discover that some incredible stories turn out to be true, it's only natural to wonder what else might still be waiting behind closed doors, right? At the same time, curiosity comes with a responsibility. I had to learn that the hard way when I opened my dad's drawer beside his bed one day when I was young. Yeah. But it's easy to repeat every rumor that circulates online. It's much harder to separate documented facts from stories that simply cannot be verified. I believe that's where the subjects become truly interesting. Not in choosing between blind belief and total skepticism, but in following the evidence wherever it leads. Sometimes the truth is even more remarkable than the myth. Other times, the mystery remains exactly that. Mystery. Area 52 reminds us that not every secret military installation hides extraterrestrial technology. Sometimes it hides the next generation of aircraft. Sometimes a Cold War program that history almost forgot. And other times it simply reminds us how little we know about the work taking place beyond those fences. Perhaps one day more documents will be declassified. Perhaps we'll learn exactly what has been tested over there the past several decades. Or perhaps much of that history will remain classified for many years to come. But until the day comes, Area 52 will continue to exist in that fascinating space between public knowledge and government secrecy. Not because of what people imagine is happening there, but because of what history has already shown us is possible. Guys, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow the podcast and share it with someone who enjoys getting into the world's most awesome mysteries. Until next time, stay curious and keep looking beyond the horizon.